Hello. You have problems on a green paper that kind of look like this. We have notes on our version. This is a clean copy, but what I wanted you to do was flip to the back because I believe most of us haven't started these problems yet. And I just wanted to do two examples with you before I release you to some other practice. So one of the first things I want you to do though, we'll do maybe these two. It's just off to the side, I want you to write 4 letters that spell foil. So when I was y'all's age, we used foil to kind of break down problems that look like this. And the goal was to take this trinomial, right? So it's a trinomial because there's 3 terms, and figure out where did it come from. So we're almost like working backwards, right? This is the answer. Where did it come from? And so you use FOIL to kind of guide you through where these numbers came from. And the way you do that is you focus on the first and the last terms. So if you remember from last class, right, we wanted to focus on these terms here. And actually I should be including the sign, so we'll include that. So we have our A term, our B term, and our C term. And if we look at our first term, the A term, right, I don't see anything attached to the x squared. It's just a 1x squared. So where did that x squared come from? Well, I multiplied an x times an x, right? So x times x. So the first terms multiplied together give us our A. So our first term comes from the A. Then I want to look at my last term. So my last term is 48. And basically I multiplied this number times this number to make a 48. So I need to figure out what those factors are. So I'm going to break down that C. And the only twist is these two numbers multiplied together to make 48 will also add to our B term. So in this case our B is 14. So what numbers could multiply to 48 to make a 14? So I would probably create a visual for yourself. Like what are the factors? So 1 and 48, 2 and 24. Notice if I add these two, they're not going to make a 14. If I keep going, 3, 4, 6, so 3 times 16, you might know that. 4 times 12, and then 6 times 8. So which pair of factors add to 14? Well, you can see most of these are too big. You get to 6 and 8. 6 plus 8 makes 14. It also multiplies to make a 48. So if I write a 6 and an 8 here, right, 6 times 8 makes 48. So the last terms, when you multiply them, so we'll just kind of add some arrows here. X times x makes x squared. That's your A. 6 times 8 is your C. And then where did this 14 come from? Well, if you take the outside and the inside products and you combine them, they make B. So let me just show you real quick. So if I do, they're both positive, so I write adding. If I do x times 8, so that's my outside, 6 times x, that's 6x. 8x plus 6x make the 14x. So these are actually pretty easy to check if you can just kind of know how to read it. So x times x makes x squared. 6 times 8 makes 48. When I add those two together, they make the 14x's. So this one's pretty straightforward because it's just multiplying 6 times 8 and you're adding the 14, so it's all positive. It's pretty straightforward. If you were to look here, this one's a little bit different because I have a negative, but same steps, right? So I'm going to start here with the factors, and the question is, where did this x squared come from? So my first terms are going to just be x times x. And then here I have a plus x, right? So you could even make a little note like this is A, this is B, and this is C. And anytime you see like just x squared by itself, you could put a 1 in front. Or if you see x by itself, you could put a 1 in front, right? Because it's just plus x or plus 1x, it's the same thing. So to find our last terms, we need to break down that 56. What are two numbers that multiply to 56 that add to the b term, which is 1? So 1 is my b. So here you're going to notice, though, that 1 is negative and 1 is positive, because basically I need to create a negative number. The only way to do that is to multiply negative times a positive, right? So I'm going to make my little table, and even if I only know 1 times 56, or I know that it's even, so I do 56 divided by 2 to get 28. I believe 4 would also work. But one number that I always think of with 56 is 7, because 7 times 8 is 56. And I like this because I notice that they're 1 apart, right? So I'm just looking for anything that has a relationship of 1. Either they add to 1 or they're 1 apart. So in this case, I have 7 and 8, which is 1 apart. I notice that the 1 is positive, so I want my 8 to be bigger and positive than the 7, because if I do 8 plus negative 7, I'm going to have one more positive number, right? So negative 7 plus 8 makes 1. That means that that's my 7, and the positive is my 8. And so if you're not sure, right, you can look down here. You're looking for minus 7 plus 8. We have a plus 8 minus 7 right there. The order doesn't matter. It's kind of like 3 plus 4 and 4 plus 3 are the same thing. But if I did want to check, right, I could always just multiply backwards. So I could do my first numbers. X times x makes x squared. I could do negative 7, my last numbers, times positive 8 to get the 56. And then the outside and the inside. So x times 8 is plus 8x. Negative 7 times x is negative 7x, right? If I add them together, that's where that 1x comes from. It's just the outside and the inside together. So here's what you're going to do. If anything on the green is not done, I would use the work that you've done previously plus these two problems to finish that. When you're done, your practice for today and your grade for today is going to come from your progress on this paper. There's 3 different versions. That's just for the game. So most of the math is going to be very similar. I think they're actually the same problems in the same order. But if you've played Clue before, right? Like you're basically trying to figure out by process of elimination which suspect used which weapon in which room to commit a crime. So just like a quick example could be like if I look, let's say here, I would just identify my A, B, and C. So start with my C, because I know x squared just means x times x.